Imagine a world divided, where two superpowers hold humanity's fate in their hands. This is the story of the Cold War, a 45-year chess game between the United States and the Soviet Union that shaped the modern world. To understand the Cold War, we have to go back to the end of World War II. It's 1945. The Allied powers, America, Britain, and the Soviet Union, have defeated Nazi Germany. But peace is short-lived. As Europe lies in ruins, two contrasting visions for the future emerge. The United States championed democracy and capitalism, while the Soviet Union, under Joseph Stalin, pushed for communism. What began as allies in war quickly turned into rivals in peace. The Iron Curtain descended, dividing Europe into East and West. Winston Churchill's famous words warned the world. An Iron Curtain has descended across the continent. In 1947, President Harry Truman announced a bold policy. The United States would fight to stop the spread of communism. This became known as the Truman Doctrine. The Cold War wasn't fought with guns or tanks, but with ideology, money, and influence. One of the first battlegrounds was Greece and Turkey. The U.S. poured millions into these countries to stop communist revolutions. Meanwhile, Stalin tightened his grip on Eastern Europe, creating satellite states. This rivalry became a global struggle for power and dominance. By 1948, Berlin became the flashpoint of Cold War tensions. Stalin blockaded West Berlin, hoping to force the Allies out. But the United States and its allies responded with the Berlin Airlift. For 11 months, planes delivered food, fuel, and supplies to the people of West Berlin. It was a symbol of Western resolve against Soviet aggression. To counter the Soviet threat, the United States and its allies formed NATO, a military alliance that promised collective defense. In response, the Soviets created the Warsaw Pact. The world was officially divided into two opposing blocs. The Cold War wasn't just fought on Earth. It extended to the skies and beyond. In 1949, the Soviet Union tested its first atomic bomb, shocking the world. Both sides raced to build bigger and deadlier weapons. By the 1960s, the world had enough nuclear bombs to destroy itself several times over. But the Cold War wasn't just about destruction. It was also about prestige. The Soviets launched Sputnik, the first satellite, igniting the space race. The United States responded by landing a man on the moon in 1969, a monumental victory in the battle for technological supremacy. The Cold War wasn't always cold. In fact, it often turned hot, but not directly between the superpowers. Instead, they fought through proxy wars. In Korea, the U.S. led a United Nations force against communist North Korea and its ally, China. In Vietnam, America fought a long and bloody war to stop communism, while the Soviet Union supplied weapons to the North Vietnamese. Perhaps the most dangerous moment came in 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. For 13 tense days, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. By the 1970s, both sides realized the cost of constant confrontation. This led to a period of détente, a relaxation of tensions. President Richard Nixon visited Moscow, and agreements like the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, SALT, aimed to reduce the nuclear threat, but détente didn't last. By the 1980s, President Reagan called the Soviet Union the evil empire and ramped up military spending, forcing the Soviets into an arms race they couldn't afford. In the late 1980s, the Soviet Union began to crumble from within. Economic stagnation and public discontent grew under the weight of military spending. Mikhail Gorbachev introduced reforms like glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring. But these changes spiraled out of control. In 1989, the Berlin Wall came down, symbolizing the end of Soviet dominance in Eastern Europe. 2 years later, in 1991, the Soviet Union itself dissolved. The Cold War was over. The United States emerged as the world's sole superpower, but the scars of this global struggle remain. The Cold War shaped the modern world in countless ways, from the technologies we use to the alliances that still exist today. It was a battle of ideologies, fought in every corner of the globe. Let's remember the lessons of this era and strive for a future where such conflicts are a thing of the past. Thank you for watching.